It was a bright Sunday morning, and the small street beside the church buzzed with life. The bells chimed gently, mingling with the hum of conversations and the soft shuffle of footsteps. Amid the bustling activity, a man appeared. He was quiet and unassuming, wearing an old, weathered cloak that hung loosely around his shoulders. With a calm expression and a kind demeanor, he carried a box of painting supplies and a roll of blank canvases. Without saying a word, he chose a shady spot beneath a large tree near the church and began to set up. His setup was simple, just a small table, an easel, and a handwritten sign that read, "I can paint anything you want, free of charge." At first, people barely noticed him. Those who did glance his way exchanged puzzled looks. Some chuckled softly, dismissing him as an eccentric artist looking for attention. A few whispered their skepticism. What's his angle? Or free paintings? Must be a trick. What no one knew was that this man wasn't just an ordinary artist. He wasn't a traveling painter looking for work or recognition. He was someone far greater, someone whose presence carried a deeper purpose. This figure was none other than Jesus Christ, choosing once again to walk among humanity, this time as a humble street artist. Little did they know, their lives were about to change forever with just a stroke of his brush. The first visitor had arrived. Alex, a little boy, no older than 8, approached the booth cautiously, clutching a worn stuffed bear in his small hands. He stared at the handwritten sign for a moment, his lips trembling as he read the words aloud. "I can paint anything you want, free of charge." Looking up at the man behind the booth, Alex hesitated before asking, "You can paint anything for free? Can you paint heaven? What does it look like?" "My mom's there." Jesus, seated behind his easel, paused for a moment. His gaze softened and his warm, compassionate eyes met Alex's. A gentle smile crossed his face and he nodded. "Yes, I can paint heaven." Jesus smiled as he dipped his brush into vibrant colors. As he painted, soft strokes of radiant color began to fill the canvas. Alex watched in silence as the image unfolded, a lush meadow with flowers of every color swaying gently in the breeze. The sky above was endless and blue, with golden sunlight pouring down, bathing everything in a warm glow. At the center of the scene stood a woman, her arms outstretched and her face beaming with joy. Alex gasped, his voice trembling. "That's her. That's my mom," he whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks. Jesus set down his brush and handed the painting to Alex. "Your mom is happy," he said softly. "She's at peace, and she wants you to know that she's always with you." Alex clutched the painting to his chest, sobbing quietly but smiling through his tears. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you so much." As Alex walked away, holding the painting close, the onlookers who had stopped to watch were silent. Some wiped away tears. Jesus, now alone at his booth, picked up a fresh canvas and began preparing for the next visitor. 30 minutes later, the next visitor has arrived. Mr. Ben, a well-dressed man carrying the air of someone important, strode confidently toward the booth. His suit was sharp, his shoes polished to a mirror shine, and his watch gleamed in the sunlight. He glanced at the handwritten sign, then at Jesus, before giving a small, almost dismissive chuckle. "You can paint anything for free?" Mr. Ben asked, raising an eyebrow. "All right then, paint me success. Make it grand, impressive, something that screams wealth. I want it to hang in my office and show everyone just how rich I am." Jesus looked up at Mr. Ben, his expression calm and steady. "Success?" he asked softly, as if tasting the weight of the word. "Yes," Mr. Ben said, a hint of impatience in his tone. "I want something luxurious, maybe stacks of gold coins, towering buildings, or, I don't know, something with yachts. You're the artist." Use your imagination." Jesus nodded, his hands moving deliberately as he reached for a blank canvas. "I see," he said gently. "Let's see what success looks like." Mr. Ben stepped back, crossing his arms as Jesus began to paint. The strokes of the brush were smooth and confident, but they didn't seem to match Mr. Ben's vision of grandeur. His impatience grew as he watched. "What's that?" he demanded, squinting at the canvas. "Where's the gold, the trophies, the power?" Jesus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he continued painting, adding warmth and light to the image. Slowly, a picture emerged, a small, cozy home, bathed in golden sunlight. Inside, a family sat together at a simple dining table, their faces lit with laughter and joy. A child ran into the room, arms open wide as a dog wagged its tail near the door. Mr. Ben's confident smirk faded, his brow furrowed as he stared at the painting. This isn't what I asked for," he said, his voice quieter now. "Where's the success in this?" Jesus set down his brush and turned the canvas toward Mr. Ben fully. "This is success," he said simply, "the kind that lasts, the kind that fills your heart, not your pockets." Mr. Ben blinked, unsure how to respond. He looked at the painting again, this time noticing the warmth in the scene, the connection, the love, the happiness radiating from the faces of the family. "But that's not—" He trailed off, his voice faltering. Jesus stood, his gaze steady and kind. "True success isn't measured by what you own," he said gently. "It's measured by what you hold dear." Mr. Ben stood there, silent and still, staring at the painting as if it held a secret he had forgotten long ago. Slowly, he reached out to take it. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't turn back as he walked away, holding the painting tightly, lost in thought. Jesus sat down again, reaching for a fresh canvas. He smiled softly to himself, ready for the next story that would unfold at his booth. The third visitor has arrived. Emma, a single mother, approached the booth with slow, weary steps, her shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. A young boy named Max clung to her hand, his curious eyes darting between the artist and the sign that read, "I can paint anything you want, free of charge." Emma's face was pale, her expression distant, as if every step she took required immense effort. As they reached the booth, she hesitated, almost turning back, but Max tugged her hand. "Go on, Mama," he said softly. Taking a deep breath, Emma faced Jesus. "My son asked me what happiness is," she said, her voice breaking slightly. I don't know how to answer him. I don't even know if I've ever felt it." Her gaze dropped to the ground, shame flickering across her face. "Can you paint happiness? Just show me what it looks like. Maybe then I'll understand." Jesus looked at her with deep compassion, his gaze steady and kind. "Of course," he said, his voice soft yet strong. "I'll paint it for you." Jesus worked calmly, his brush strokes deliberate and fluid. Slowly, an image emerged, a simple, peaceful scene. Beneath the shade of a large tree, a mother and her child sat together. They weren't surrounded by wealth or luxury. Instead, they shared a modest meal. The sunlight streamed gently through the leaves, illuminating their faces, which were lit with smiles and laughter. Max's face lit up as he pointed to the painting. "Mama, that's us. But why do we look so happy?" Jesus turned the canvas toward them fully, his eyes meeting Emma's as he spoke. "Because happiness doesn't come from what you have," he said gently. "It comes from the moments you share, from love, and from being present with each other." Emma's lips trembled, her eyes filling with tears as she stared at the painting. She dropped to her knees, pulling Max into her arms, and sobbed quietly, her tears spilling over years of exhaustion and despair. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know it could be this simple." Max wrapped his arms around her, his voice small but firm. "Mama, we can be happy, can't we?" Emma nodded, holding him tightly. For the first time in a long time, a faint smile broke through her tears. "Yes," she said, her voice steadying. "Yes, we can." Jesus handed her the painting, his gaze filled with reassurance. "This is your reminder," he said softly. "Happiness is not far away. It's already here, waiting for you." Walking away, Emma stood a little taller, her steps a little lighter, as if the weight she had carried for so long had finally been lifted. Jesus watched them leave, his heart full. By the time the sun began to sink lower in the sky, Jesus had painted for many visitors, each with their own stories of heartbreak, longing, and hope. Yet, he knew his work wasn't finished. Jesus stood and walked to the large wall that bordered the square. With deliberate movements, he prepared to paint something different. The crowd murmured with curiosity as he set up a canvas larger than any he had used before. Jesus dipped his brush into radiant colors, blending light and warmth into every stroke. The first outlines appeared, and the crowd fell silent, captivated. Slowly, the image took form, a breathtaking vision of heaven. At the center of the painting was Jesus himself, his face glowing with pure joy. He was surrounded by people of all ages and backgrounds, their faces alight with laughter and peace. Children danced in fields of wildflowers, while elders rested beneath golden trees. Families reunited, their hands intertwined. The sky above was infinite and bright, with colors that seemed to shimmer and shift like a living thing. Someone in the crowd gasped softly. "It's beautiful," they said. Another voice, trembling, asked, Is that what heaven looks like?" He turned to the crowd, his gaze gentle but purposeful. "This," he said, gesturing to the painting, "is what I want for all of you. Heaven isn't just a place far away. It's something we can carry in our hearts, here and now, through love, kindness, and faith." As the final strokes of the painting were laid upon the wall, the crowd erupted into murmurs of awe and wonder. Finally, someone in the crowd broke the silence. A man, his voice trembling with emotion, called out, "Who are you? How do you understand us so well?" Jesus turned to the man, his expression serene, his gaze filled with infinite compassion. He smiled gently and replied, "I am just an artist, painting what your hearts have always known but have forgotten." The words hung in the air, their simplicity carrying a profound truth that left the crowd speechless. Then he turned and walked away, his figure growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared into the horizon. The people stood in silence, their hearts heavy yet full of something they couldn't quite describe. Hope, perhaps, or a renewed sense of purpose. They turned back to the painting, now glowing softly in the twilight, as though it carried a piece of heaven itself. From that day forward, the mural on the wall became a symbol of the neighborhood, a reminder of love, joy, and hope. It was a testament to the quiet, transformative power of compassion and the enduring presence of Jesus in their lives. Though he had left, his message remained, etched not only in the painting, but in the hearts of all who had been there that day forever.